This is the May 2025 ACAP webinar, and we're very happy to have you join us today. Our topic is, not May, April, and we're very happy that you joined us for our topic, Green Spaces for Healthy Aging. This is a webinar organized by Sandra Slatter from Melbourne, outside Melbourne. We're just excited to learn about this issue. I've had many people contact me from interested in the built environment and green space and healthy aging. So they're looking forward to this. And if they can't come, they want the recording. So this is sponsored by ACAP, but also with funding from the Barbara Cox Anthony Endowment for Aging at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. So we welcome everyone. Are we recording already, Jenna?
Yes, I am recording.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so a little bit about ACAP. Our mission is to share friendship and best practices for active aging. So ACAP is the abbreviation of Active Aging Consortium Asia Pacific. Our benefits are that we learn from each other. That's our mission, friendship and sharing. We have a quarterly bulletin. We have monthly webinars, and we participate in conferences. So here's a picture from before COVID, but we have recently had a conference, which I'll show you some pictures on. But you can tell we're a friendly bunch and always open to members. The best thing of all about ACAP is it's free. All you have to do is send me an email and I'll add you to our membership list. So we did have our 20th anniversary conference last month, and that was very, very successful. Here are some pictures, and there's Ksorn and some other people that are on the call you might see here in the photos, but it was a very lovely time. We learned a lot about the advances of Fukuoka and their Fukuoka 100 project. So they understand that everyone might live to be 100 and trying to create a friendly environment in Fukuoka to support that. So ACAP has more than 1,400 members from around the world. You can see the countries here. If your country is not called out, please let me know and I will try to add it there. In fact, I don't see Sri Lanka's name, but we do have members in Sri Lanka as well. So here's some topics for our webinars coming up. We have heard about the Fukuoka conference. We focused on doctors do cry, emotions that doctors go through when dealing with end-of-life decisions and patients who are at the end of life. Now this is respite and green spaces in Australia, and next month, age-friendly universities. And you can see some of our topics in the months ahead. So just to give you an idea of what's happening next month in May, on May 13th in Asia, May 12th in Honolulu, we will be having a webinar on age-friendly universities with speakers from Hong Kong and Australia and Arizona. And Aaron Guest is the president of this network, and he'll tell us how people can transform their universities to be age-friendly and what it takes to join their network. So today we have over 90 registrants from more than 14 countries, and you can see the countries listed there. And now I would like to introduce our moderator, Sandra Slatter. And Sandra is a friend and has presented before on the ACAP webinar series. And she's the president of Dementia Alliance and hails from Melbourne. She's a passionate advocate for people living with dementia, their families, and their carers. She has deep roots in community work and lived experience, guiding her leadership. And she brings empathy, strengths, and vision to everything she does. She's committed to building more inclusive, supportive, and connected communities where everyone feels seen, valued, and supported. So I'm very, very happy to turn the meeting over to Sandra as she will be introducing the speakers, and then we will have time for questions. Okay, Sandra.
Thank you, Catherine. Somehow my video's gone off, but I'll play with that shortly. So apologies for that. I got logged out altogether. So thank you very much, Catherine. And look, it's indeed a pleasure for Australia to be able to be hosting this meeting today. So today my co-presenters and I will be exploring the many benefits of green spaces for healthy ageing. We'll be covering everything from wellbeing and inclusion to design innovation and lived experience. We kindly ask that you hold your questions until after the final speaker, when we'll open up for discussion and reflections. Our first speaker for today is Pauline Marsh, and Pauline Marsh is a health geographer. She's a senior lecturer in dementia studies at the Wicking University. Over to you, Pauline.
Thanks very much, Sandra, and thank you, Catherine, for this fantastic opportunity. And thanks everyone for coming along. Can I just check, can people see my slide screen there now? Fantastic, wonderful. I'm coming to you from Lutruwita, Tasmania, and I'll just pay my respects to the Palawapakana elders past and present and extend that respect to the Indigenous custodians of the lands that you're joining us from today. So today I'm just going to give a really brief introduction to some of the evidence that underpins the assumptions around nature, well-being, and dementia and the benefits of that combination. There is a lot of evidence. The first thing to say is that there is no doubt that there is a lot of robust evidence now that supports the benefits of nature for well-being for the general population. We can sort of we can categorize the evidence into three broad categories, if you like. These are three clouds of evidence. The first one represents the sort of physiological benefits, or the benefits that come from having a clean and healthy environment. These are things like having a robust biodiverse environment, the microbial benefits that come from that, things that improve humans' immune function, as well as broad public health benefits. And the pink cloud is a collection of benefits that come from mainly work done in psychology, showing preventative and restorative benefits of nature connection for people across the broader population. There's a lot of good work that has been done over the past 20 years or so in this area to show that being in nature lowers stress levels, improves our attention, helps to regulate our emotions. It increases our physical activity, which is intertwined with those things, our general coping capacity, and also evidence to show increases in joy and hope and positivity. So that's what I would call the sort of prevention and restorative evidence. And then the third cloud, the blue cloud, is evidence that shows some enabling or empowering functions of being in nature. These are things like people reporting an increased sense of autonomy and meaning and purpose. Also, things like pride and esteem, closely related to a stronger sense of place. It also has been demonstrated to improve social engagement and strengthen social connections. So, which is interesting when you look at alongside the sort of lowered stress and improved attention, which is more of an individual benefit. It's also got this lovely broader social connection benefit. And then overall increase in life satisfaction. This is something that I want to just touch on a little bit more. Recently in Australia, we did a national survey and had over 4,000 respondents. It's sort of fairly representative of the Australian population. It was a mixture of quant and qual open-ended questions that measured nature connectedness alongside measuring well-being and life satisfaction. Nature connection has been measured in many different ways over the years, often using scales where people can indicate how connected they are. And it contains elements not only of physical connection with nature, but also psychological or emotional and spiritual connections with nature. It approaches nature in a sort of multifaceted way, and nature connectedness refers to a multi-dimensional connection with nature. And this finding in our survey showed that people with the highest levels of nature connectedness were also 4.6 times more likely to have the highest levels of life satisfaction, and also 1.9 times more likely to have higher levels of quality of life compared with people who are on the lowest levels of nature connection. So I hope that this message is loud and clear, that there is a strong evidence base for a firm connection between nature connection and well-being, and it comes from a range of disciplines. So if we turn our attention now to dementia, dementia refers to a syndrome caused by multiple causes that cause neurodegeneration. This is the neuroscience sort of understanding of dementia. But of course, dementia is also experiential. It is embodied and it's relational. It's not just about what's going on in our brain. It's about what's going on between us as a person and the world around us, the people around us and the environment around us. And when we understand dementia in this way, we can look to a range of ways to help people live well with dementia, acknowledging, of course, that it is a life-limiting illness and where there is currently no cure. But the evidence here shows that to live well with dementia, we need to optimize our sort of general well-being in the same way that we do for the general population. Minimizing stress is incredibly important. Absolutely no stress at all is the ideal. Being social is very important. Finding peace and tranquility, to have that time of a reduced cognitive load. We talk about reducing the cognitive burden that comes with modern sort of living. Seeking out respectful places, so that's places where you're not encountering the sort of stigma against dementia, and also finding things to do that are fulfilling and enjoyable, or we might say meaningful. So when we bring the two together, nature connection and living well with dementia, there's a range of research now that's being done in this space. A lot of it is qualitative, some of it is quantitative, and some of it uses mixed methods. This is a very exciting space and one that we're, really excited to be working in. I'm just going to draw your attention to two interesting papers. I won't talk about them in depth. They're just to really give you an example of a couple of different approaches to research in this area. This is an Australian study where they built a garden in an underutilised space alongside an acute older person's mental health unit in a hospital. And they looked at the rates of falls and changes in people's behaviour as the garden was being established and then being used. And of course, they had some fantastic results, positive results about the use in the garden, and not just the physical use, but also the sort of psychological benefits and the benefits for families as well who were visiting. That's one lovely paper. The second bit of shameless self-promotion here. This is one we did a couple of years ago, PhD student at Wicking, a mixed studies review looking at green spaces, dementia, and a meaningful life in the community. And that I encourage you, if you're interested in this area, to take a look at that. And then there's been some more reviews since then that sort of summarize a lot of the work that's been done in this space. So you can see why nature is good for all of us. It is particularly great for people who are living with dementia. It increases our physical health, our emotional regulation, our social connection, life satisfaction, meaning and purpose. So therefore, it decreases loneliness, stress, cognitive load, care partner challenges, which are an important part of living well with dementia, and boredom, giving people things to do. I just want to finish off with a quick nod to our living lab that we've just started in Tasmania, run out of the Wicking Centre here at the University of Tasmania. A living lab is a real life research environment, multidisciplinary, collaborative, iterative. We've got a range of different research methods that we're building into our lab, and we work with communities and with the people in the lab to generate positive change with the research process and with the research outcomes. And in our living lab, we have nature hubs at the core that are based in the community, that we make dementia friendly, and we invite people to come along, and we build in a range of different research methods working that are dementia inclusive, so that people with dementia can contribute to that research. And I think I've got 2 seconds, so please get in touch. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Pauline. Fantastic presentation. And you'll get Pauline's contact details if there's anything that she touched on today that you'd like further information about. I'd now like to hand over to Dr. Joanna Sun. And Joanna is an environmental gerontologist, and she's a lecturer in dementia studies also at the Wicking University. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Sandra. Sorry, I forgot to unmute there. My slides looking okay? Can everybody see the slides? Cool. All right. So I'll jump right in. So today I'll be talking about considerations for inclusive green spaces. All right. And I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Wuwinina and Mumirina people as the original owners of the land, and the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the continuing custodians of the Lutruwita. I pay our respects to the elders past and present as we connect from many places around the world. I also acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of all the lands we gathered on today. All right. So first, I'd like to talk about barriers to green spaces. So a little bit of a transition from what Pauline was talking about. So here, I'm looking at green spaces for people living with dementia. And we know that there are a lot of physical barriers to the outdoors. So yeah, so there's a lot of exclusionary design, limited accessibility. There's a lot of social barriers as well. We talk about dignity of risk, and like, for example, Pauline was mentioning caregiver challenges. There's a lot of safety concerns and that cognitive load. So again, from the previous presentation, the sensory, whether it's over or under stimulation. So yeah. And, looking at the evidence, what makes a green space inclusive for people living with dementia? And we know there's quite a few different things, and I'll kind of run through a little bit here. So yeah, there's always the accessibility. You always hear that, coming out, the accessibility and the design as well. So whether the spaces, are they easily accessible, and whether they're designed to stimulate the people using the space as well. And this includes open access to outdoor areas, and basically paths that, I guess you can say that are safe to navigate. So yeah. And then safety and security is a huge thing that comes up a lot. Like with the dignity of risk, there's a lot of discussions, like if you talk to stakeholders, ensuring that the safety of the users is crucial. And some of the little things that could be done to achieve this is basically like, for example, having clear boundaries. And I'm not talking about fences, but you can put in signages and little cues that can help people understand where things start and where things end. And this is also important for care partners as well. Um, and like previously mentioned, there are challenges for care partners and to kind of also support the care partners to reduce that cognitive load, to support care partners and also for formal, say if they have any healthcare staff that may be with them, like a home care worker that's bringing the person out into a green space. So this allows the person to navigate the space, without the sort of concerns, without the sort of worry, as well as for the care partners as well. And then we look at, engagement in meaningful activities. So the green spaces, we want to make sure that these green spaces offer opportunities for engaging in activities that are meaningful for people. It can be gardening, it can be walking, it can be just sitting down, writing, journaling, something that basically enhances their sense of purpose and identity as well. And then we talk a little bit about social interaction and empowerment. Spaces ideally should offer a range. So, and a lot of spaces, if you see, may not encourage social interaction. So that's something we need to think about, that social interaction and empowering people by allowing them to take risks and to take risks to engage in the space and with other people as well, and to make choices about their activities. And we talk about how we can enhance or maintain mood and well-being. And from the previous presentation as well, exposure, to nature basically improves your mood and well-being. So even that short duration of outdoor exposure is a real win-win. And lastly, I guess you need to think about that collaboration and co-design, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later as we go along. But we know that the successful inclusion strategies often involve collaboration and cooperation between, people living with dementia, and then the public-private sectors as well. So that this green spaces that we're looking at are part of a broader inclusion strategy. So you really need that top-down, bottom-up approach. So yeah. And let's look at what's out there at the moment and some of the barriers that we have. So when you look at standard best practices and considerations, a lot of them is very physical. So like in this slide, you see that big red ball that's just, with the word physical, and social and cognitive side of things, you may not see that a lot in a lot of the standards. So even looking at your universal design principles, physical accessibility, recommendations for inclusive amenities and facilities, a lot of it worldwide, it's very it's very much on the built environment, and it's also very much physical. So when we talk about green spaces, there's a real gap out there. So yeah. And we know that, for, I guess a lot of people here would know, best practice considerations. People look at universal design principles, some of the legal frameworks like the Disability Discrimination Act in Australia. So that's the 1992 Act, like Americans with Disability Act, the ADA. And in the UK, you've got the UK Building Regulations documents as well. So yeah. So, and you can see a lot of it, it's very heavy on the physiological side of things and built environments. So when we talk about dementia and built environments, there are actually some really good recommendations out there as well. And I think Kirsty, who's our next speaker, would actually cover some of this. So I've got this little slide here, which kind of just lightly touch on what she'll be sharing later. So, and the Design Dignity and Dementia team, they've got values and they've got principles as well on designing for people living with dementia. So I'll share a little bit about Venture Out. So I'm part of Pauline's team, as you can see from this lovely photo. So that's Pauline, Cassie, myself, and Huang. And yeah, so in our team, we look at connecting people living with dementia, with nature, with the outdoor space, with green spaces. And we found that there is a huge gap when it comes to looking at these spaces. A lot of the assessment tools, a lot of recommendations, like I mentioned before, very much on the built environment side, very much on the physical side of things, you know. So from here, what our team have done is we looked at the evidence. We've got a community of practice, which are made from different stakeholders like allied health professionals. We've got we've got dementia advocates. So it's a huge range of public, private sector people coming together, and we also have an advisory group. So having everybody come together, we've got feedback from everybody about basically what are some of the key principles. So we've come up with these 5 Nature Hub principles to kind of guide us on looking at the outdoor space. And we've come up with these 5 principles, which are dignity and choice, familiarity and culture. And culture is a really important piece, I feel, because culture differs. I mean, and I'm singing to the choir here. We all come from different backgrounds. It's a huge, diverse group where we are. So, familiarity and culture is it's a very important piece. And the outdoor space is important as well because how nature looks may be very different from a person who lives in an urban space, to somebody that's grown up on a farm somewhere rural. Your idea, your understanding, your schema, of what an outdoor green space is very, very different. So these are, yeah, and then we talk about accessibility and safety, it's a huge thing for a lot of the stakeholders, which is understandable. Flexibility and adaptability. So this we talked I've covered a little bit earlier about meaningful engagement and empowerment, and these kind of ensure that you have that flexibility and adaptability in the space, and then rest and stimulation as well, which is very much related to like Pauline mentioned before with the cognitive load. And lastly, again, I think this is a really big key takeaway. So the co-designing part is really, really important. We need the evidence and we need to co-design as well. So from the literature, from the people, we bring in the voices, we bring in everybody's thoughts and feedback to kind of piece together some of these key principles. And for anybody out there who are looking at similar projects as well, yeah, I would encourage you very much to ensure that if you're looking to design a green space, and make sure that you co-design the space with the users, and also with all the stakeholders involved. So, not just the person living with dementia, but with care partners, with people who are working with them, people in the council, allied health professionals. So, yeah. Yeah, that's it from me. So yes, thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Very interesting presentation.
No worries.
I'll now go over to Kirsty Bennett, who is an architect, and Kirsty is also the co-founder of Evolve Consulting, which is about creating enabling environments in Australasia. Thank you, Kirsty.
Thanks, Sandra. And again, I assume everyone can now see my screen okay?
Yes.
Great, good, thank you. I'm coming to you from Melbourne, Naarm, and I'm on the land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, part of the Kulin Nation. And so I also pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'm really pleased today to be talking to you about how we can evaluate green spaces for suitability and inclusion. And I'd like to focus on the Dignity Environmental Assessment tool to do this. I'm going to be really talking then about residential aged care settings. And one of the reasons that we think that the Dignity EAT, that's the short version of it, the Dignity EAT is important is because it's a new tool that's just recently been released that Richard Fleming and I have co-authored and put together. And it does really recognise the need and the urgency to provide the people who live in residential aged care with both access to nature and meaningful activities. So, now this is going to be interesting. Here we are. So the Dignity EAT arose from the manifesto. So Joanna just mentioned that briefly, and you can see there the website link. I hope you might have heard about it already. Please have a look. If you haven't signed up, please do. The Dignity Manifesto of Designing for People Living with Dementia is relevant to all sorts of design. And you'll see that just from that slide, it does talk about goals, values, and principles, as Joanna mentioned. And one of the things that I think is particularly pertinent here is that first value, that we want to consider the holistic well-being of the individual, the community, and the environment. And nature plays a vital part in that, of course. The Dignity Eat is based on a lot of work that Richard and I and others have done over many decades. The World Alzheimer Report 2020 is based on design principles. If you don't know about the Enabling Environments website, that's Alzheimer's WA website that has great environment information, and the environmental design resources that are available from Dementia Training Australia for free. These are all based on principles. So the Dignity Eat is the latest version of this work. The tools are organised around evidence-based principles. And here you can see the pictograms that highlight what they are on about. The first one, with the lady with the watering can, is designing for a vision for a way of life. That's the most important thing. What's important to people, what they want to do. And then we do think about how do we unobtrusively reduce risk? How do we design for a human scale? How do we design so people can see and be seen? How do we optimise stimulation by reducing the things that are unhelpful and making the most of the things that are helpful to a person living with dementia? We want to design for movement, engagement and meaning, as well as afford people opportunities to have contact with nature. We want to create familiar environments, places where people can be alone or with others, and also connect to the wider community. Many of these things, again, Joanna and Pauline have already mentioned. I'd like to emphasise, and there's so much more about these that you can follow up on. I'd like to emphasise this is actually just good design. It's particularly important for people who live with cognitive impairment, but this is just good design. So, as we talk about the Dignity Eat, as I've said, its focus is to use it in residential aged care. It's a principles-based tool. Some other assessment tools will focus on areas. So say, what do you need to do in a kitchen or a dining room or a lounge room? Whereas we take each of the principles and explore those. One of the reasons I'm very passionate as an architect about principles is because it does allow us to respond to context. Culture and context is vital. Me sitting here in Melbourne will live a different life in so many ways from the places where you're sitting. Sandra, who's only an hour or two away from me, still will live in a different environment to me. So we need to apply the principles in a context. That's what can make them meaningful. The other thing I want to highlight with this assessment tool is there's a big focus on the conversation. It's not about what score you get, but it's about having a means of having a systematic conversation and guiding a conversation about how we are applying the principles. One of the strengths is that within this assessment tool, within the Dignity Eat, we now give greater focus to outdoor spaces and green spaces, not as a separate item off to the side, as an architect often landscape ends up being, but placing it in the heart of all design. One of the principles that is a feature of the tool is how do we afford people opportunities to enjoy contact with nature? And in doing that, we think about things that such as the benefits of nature, how do we have easy access, how do we make the most of people being aware of the season and the time of day? Where do we place outdoor spaces in the overall design? What are transition spaces like? And how can people have contact with nature when they're indoors? You'll see for this particular tool, as I show you a page from the tool, for this particular principle, there are 5 questions that we have asked. A change in this tool from previous tools that we've done is that we've got more nuanced scoring now with 0, 1 and 2, rather than just a simple yes or no. And the idea there is to try to give an indication of what a poor response would be, a good response would be, and an ideal response would be. But again, use this with the knowledge of your context. That relates to the next section, which is key ideas briefly explain. There we give you some background. We give some information about each of the principles and why we've asked the questions we've asked, why they're important, but they're very much related to Australian guidelines. And there may well be things in your cultural context that you would say, we think we need to ask this differently, or we would respond to that principle in a different way. Fine, fantastic, go for it. That's the point. The idea is that anyone can use this tool. You don't have to have particular training. And these key ideas briefly explained are to help anyone use the tool. One of the things that's in the tool too is this 4-part schema that we refer to in the tool rather, in that section. And I just wanted to touch on that because it does place these principles in a context, and it also places an assessment tool in a context. So you can see there, we're looking at saying there are goals, there are principles, there are approaches, and there are responses. And the goal of this is that we can allow people who live with dementia to participate at all of those aspects of a project, allow content and context and culture to come to the fore, and share perhaps what's a common language in a goal, and then different language to explore what principles, approaches, and responses are. The Dignity Eat's available under the Commons Attribution Share Alike license. And you can see there, you're free to use it, share it, adapt it with some particular requirements, basically to make sure that that spirit of sharing is carried on and when you use the tool. There's the link to the website again. That's where you can find it, the Dignity Manifesto website. Please use it. Please share your feedback. The idea is we keep learning from each other, share the knowledge that we have, and with that, we can design better outdoor spaces for people who are living with dementia. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Great presentation. So moving forward, Dementia Alliance have actually taken the research, the points, the ideas that have been put forward, and also the principles to actually create what we call Reflections at Epilogue. And this is a case study in innovation and inclusive green space. I'm just going to try and bring my presentation up now. Okay, before I start the presentation, I'd also like to acknowledge, sorry, I'm just trying to move my slides on. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are hosting this event. I pay my deepest respects to their elders past and present. This land has been a place of gathering, healing and storytelling for thousands of years. The Dja Rung have long nurtured and cared for these lands, waters and skies, understanding that country is not just land, it's life, spirit and connection. May we all walk forward together, listening, learning and honouring the deep cultural heritage of this land as we build a future that respects and celebrates First Nations voices. So Reflections at Epilogue is a physical and philosophical expression of everything that we've heard today. It's about collaborative design, it's about inclusive thinking, innovation and dignity-led environments. Dementia Alliance has taken the core messages from each of the speakers and asked, how do we turn this into something real and something lived? From universal design to cultural nuance, from best practice principles to tangible impact, from green space theory into lived experience. We didn't just consider accessibility, we co-designed with people with dementia and their caregivers, with our First Nation people, multicultural and LGBTQIA+ communities to create spaces that are not only physically accessible, but emotionally and culturally safe. Our approach is built on co-design, cultural understanding, and a deep commitment to ensuring everyone feels seen, respected, and at home. Inclusion at Reflections is not a statement, it's a lived experience. From best practice principles to tangible impact, we've embedded the Dignity Manifesto of Design in every corner of Costfield House, our award-winning care villa, into a space where every inch has been purposely created to reduce anxiety, promote autonomy, and celebrate the individuality of people living with dementia. This is supported by state-of-the-art technology and emerging AI, enhancing safety, comfort, and personalised support. From intuitive lighting and temperature controls to future-ready assistive systems, we've built a space that combines human-centred design with intelligent tools, ensuring dignity, security, and connection remain at the heart of the experience. We've created a community hub, a space for connection and purpose. At the heart of Reflections, the community hub is a welcoming, inclusive space. It's been designed for gatherings and shared meals, creative activities and crafts, education workshops and carer support, and quiet connection or lively conversation. It's a place where people can come together to learn, create, relax, and belong, supporting both carers and care recipients through meaningful community-led engagement. It's more than just the building. The hub is a living space for culture, connection, and care. From green space theory to lived experience, what we've heard today about the power of nature and well-being is fully realised at Reflections at Epilot. Here, nature is not a backdrop. It's an active and intentional part of our care model. Our sensory gardens, yarning circle, and walking trails are designed to engage all senses. With innovative wayfinding, sculptures of brightly coloured plants, native animals and birds, accompanied by narrative signage and a brightly coloured buddy benches inviting rest and reflection along the way. The lakeside barbecue and picnic area will provide a peaceful gathering space, while our food cage, complete with wicking beds, allows for communal gardening while keeping the wildlife at bay. We have a massive problem with our wildlife in Australia, particularly in rural areas. They love our gardens. So we've also been creating a welcoming habitat for chickens, ducks, rabbits, and more, connecting people to the rhythms of nature and nurturing responsibility and calm. Reflections is not a pilot or a prototype. It's a living demonstration of what's possible when design is driven by community, guided by empathy, and grounded in purpose. This is innovation made visible, and this is just not the beginning. So thank you, and thank you, everyone. So now happy to open up for questions, and it might be helpful if you have a questions that relates to a particular presenter, if you could actually say their name and put your question directly to them. So thank you.
Vinod, I know you had something in the chat. Did you want to
Yes,
share?
I know. Yes, can I speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, my comment is not specifically for dementia persons. I'm just talking about elder people in general. And my point is that, of course, it's quite acceptable that our connectedness with nature is of great benefit from various points of view of our health. There's no doubt about that. But I was trying to impress upon the fact that visiting a green space, or for that matter, visiting a blue space, although it is useful, but whatever is happening in the nature, we have to really focus on that to draw the maximum benefits. And I was suggesting that if we visit some such places of nature's surroundings, we should mindfully focus and concentrate our attention through our senses given to us by God. Like, for example, vision is one of the senses. We should try to focus our vision on places in nature, like, for example, just not simply the greenery, but also on the sunset or sunrise, or if there are any water bodies thereon, and mindfully see them. Same thing will happen to our other senses if we try. Like, for example, we can use our hearing sense. And for hearing, we can mindfully hear the bird songs, the bird chirping, rustling sounds of the leaves when the wind flows there. And same thing can be said about our smell. We can focus our attention through our smell on the fragrance of flowers or aromatic plants and things like that. And same, I think same can be said for other senses also, like touch and taste, and we can always mindfully focus these things. That's one point. The second very brief point is that in a metropolitan large city, I think somehow we have lost our nature's places, and it's all concrete jungle in many big cities. So we have to, I think, also bring the nature indoor sometime, because we cannot go out all the time, and they are just simply not available, or there is a pollution outdoor, and there are so many physical barriers for elder citizens to go out. So they should also try to bring some nature indoor. And there are some plants available through the research that these plants, if they are brought into the house, either in the gallery or in some closed spaces, even in our own house, then you can really use these plants, which are able to uh, absorb carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and other poisonous things like formaldehyde, and they can emit oxygen and purify the air. So that is one thing I would like to say very briefly. So I'm sorry I have taken a little long time, but
Yeah,
these are
no,
my thank you.
yeah, no, and thank you. And there was a message came up in the chat from another Kirsty Crawford, and Kirsty, you may be the best one to answer this. It's about having garden, having green space indoors.
What was the particular, sorry, I just was looking to see, was there a particular question relating or just generally that idea of indoors? Yeah.
Yeah, having a garden indoors if you can't have space
Yeah.
outside.
So
Yeah.
I think I'm very conscious that going back to I was talking before about culture and context. Context is everything. Australia, we live in a very different setting, and whether we live in the city or rural, it's very much how we design our settings. So I think and that's one of the strengths, I think, and talking about the Dignity Eat, but just generally as we approach design, it's not just the outdoor spaces. We need to be integrating the two. And so that does relate to views, what we can get to see, but then, yeah, what do we bring inside? How do we bring fresh air in? How do we bring bird song? I don't know if any of it's coming through on my speaker. Sometimes when I'm on Zoom, I have people say to me, "Where is that bird?" Well, it's just sitting on a wire out there, but it's just my door's open, so I'm straight away getting the nature in, and I'm in inner urban Melbourne. I'm not where Sandra is. I don't have those gum trees just outside my door. So yes, I think it's back to what's relevant. Think about small places. Think about, because we don't need to have a lot. We can do a lot with a small amount of area and space. And think about how we use nature indoors to get the maximum benefit, which a lot of that can be to do with lines of sight. So if I have one spot within a building, can I see it from many spots? Because that's another way to get the most of connecting with nature, that it's not a separate thing, it's actually part of daily life. Because as you move around a building and live in a building, you constantly are put in touch with nature. And if it's possible within that indoors to connect with time and place, seasons, time of day, fantastic. But it is really worth, thinking about not separating nature and inside, but connecting the two. And I think vision is really important. How do we place it in a context that we get the most out of it and it becomes part of our daily life? I hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks, Kirsty. Catherine, I might hand over to you now. I can't see any other questions coming up at this
Okay,
stage.
yeah, well, Nargis has her hand raised. So,
Catherine.
Argus, go ahead.
Oh, hi, hello everyone.
Right.
I have a comment and a question. The first comment is I'm with that goes with the Vinod. I see many places and even many libraries they started adding like a living wall, which is like a tree, plants, small plants planted in the wall. So the wall is vertical, but there are lots of plants, and I see many buildings are also doing that. So that's kind of not bringing inside, but still you can see the wall all the time. Additional maintenance, but it's like if you have, especially in urban area, less space, so you are using the wall. So I'm a big fan of green spaces, as you know. But my question is, I missed a little part, but I'm not sure if it covered there. I forgot which speaker was it, but I saw somewhere like involving stakeholders in designing the green spaces. So I want to know a little bit about that. How did you do it, and how was the outcome? Thank you.
Yeah, Joanna, do you want to speak to
Yep.
that, please? Yeah.
Oh, easy. Yep. So
Yep.
for us, we have a communities of practice. Our venture out, we've got our own communities of practice, and you actually, I guess it's number one, identifying who your stakeholders would be in this project. So for us, like we approached Dementia Australia, we approached community OTs, and we approached dementia advocates. So, you've kind of got to kind of nut it down, like who are the people that are going to use this space. And who are the people that are also supporting these people using this space. So it's important to basically sit down and pen it out first, and then associate the different organizations that may be involved. And then we basically just went out to engage each of these organizations to get them together, and then we have our community of practice on which everybody comes together and have a chat about these things. And we also have, like, for example, stakeholders that are running activities um, in the community, in the outdoor space, like community gardens. So people running community gardens, land care groups, that sort of thing. So it's good to have that sort of holistic view on things, because as if it's like top down only, you may miss out things that, somebody that may be living with dementia or a care partner may need. So yeah.
Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you.
Wherever you want.
Okay, so we do have Kevin Kawamoto with his hand up.
I will just call you back.
Go ahead,
after
Kevin.
that.
Vinod, I'm going to mute you, Vinod, because we're hearing your conversation.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was thinking about elders who live in institutional settings who, because of maybe severe health problems or other logistical issues, they're not able to leave those settings. What do you think about having nature scenes brought into these residences through video and audio kinds of technologies? Do you think that is also going to be beneficial? It may not be as good as actually that direct experience in nature, but what do you think about technologically delivered types of natural environments in the institution? Anyone?
Pauline, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Kevin. It's a really good question, and it's something that comes up a lot. And you're right, there are benefits from just viewing green spaces or viewing nature. But you're also right, there is a bit of a continuum, and that you may have some benefits. This is what the evidence is showing. Benefits from viewing nature, but they're not going to be this to the same degree as the benefits of full immersion in as somebody else pointed out, in nature that is biodiverse and offers us that opportunity to connect with nature, to make those connections. So that's one thing I would say. But the other thing I want to say, and I think this is coming through the themes of a few of the questions, is that I think that what needs to happen globally is to shift from an idea of nature and nature connection for older people or for people with severe physical, mental, or cognitive disruption, we need to shift away from the idea that it's just a nice addition to living in a residential aged care or to being clinically cared for, to being absolutely vital for a good quality of life. And it's a human rights issue that people need to be connecting with nature no matter where they live or their own physical, mental, or cognitive condition. I feel very strongly about that. I hope you can hear that in my voice. Thank you.
Oh,
Sure can.
oh, that's great. Okay, so we have a comment. We have two comments, and the first one is from Stanley from Hong Kong. He says, we also need to pay attention about sustainability of green space that is always offset by pollution and speedy climate change. Not quite sure who can answer that one or comment on that one, Sandra.
No, I'm not sure whether, is that in your area, Pauline, or more so in Joanna's?
I think it's probably across all our areas, to
Yeah.
be honest. And again, I would say you're right. We're by dipping our toe into this area of nature connection, we're opening up this large global problem around climate change and the conditions that we have created that are now unsustainable for the planet. And so what we do by, wanting to connect people to nature at the same time, we're having a positive effect on protecting or reinvigorating environmental areas in the community. And also having some influence on policy, environmental policy alongside health policy, trying to bring those two things together rather than keeping them separate.
Thanks, Pauline.
If I can just add, maybe at a project level, so picking up, I'm absolutely share your passion about the importance, Pauline, of integrating nature, and hopefully that came across in what I was saying as well. And part of that in residential aged care is, as I alluded to, often landscape is seen as what you add on or do at the end, rather than being an integral part of the design and the vision right from the beginning. And it's not just a design question, it's an operation question. So actually, when you design a setting, you always should be thinking, how are we going to operate this setting? How are we going to run this setting? And a key aspect of that is not how are we cleaning, how are we maintaining the lighting? It's actually how are we maintaining the whole setting? And from that point of view, how are we maintaining the outdoor spaces? And that then means if you want to do it, you design in a way that you can maintain it. That opens up all sorts of possibilities, but it has to be considered and given priority at the start. And so we need to take that holistic view of what are the benefits, and it will cost money and it will give you this much benefit. So it's a really good use of money. So let's plan for it, put it in our budget straight away, design well, design environments to be enabling, and then the environment's working. Reduce it passively, it's working all the time without relying on staff to be assisting someone or initiating an interaction. And I think so it's really important to approach this question from the very start of a project with the idea, how will it continue for the whole life of the project so that that outdoor space remains as amazing in 20 years' time as it did when the facility was opened.
Yeah. Yeah, good points.
Yeah,
Yes, there's
and
also a long message from Manvo, if we can get that in. Manvo, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I'm from ASEAN Center for Activation and Innovation. Together with me today is also Suguru Ito. He's the head of strategy unit, and our Dr. Somsak, executive director, may have met you in the Fukuoka last month. So very nice for organizing this monthly webinar, and we look forward to the next session next month as well. So it comes to me when I heard about the many presentation about nature and outdoor. Me myself also an outdoor lover, but when I live here, based in Bangkok, I recognize the facility and infrastructures, also the nature and air quality is not really Asian friendly for older people to bring themselves out. So I think so when the discussion later about the bringing the nature to indoor, like plant or designing an environment where people can also reconnect with nature is really a good idea. That it could be something for us to reconsider in the future plans in terms of like our regions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think Kirsty did answer your question, so thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I like that, bringing it indoors too. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so I know some people will. Well, it's an hour later, wherever you are. And it's been a great webinar. I just wondered if there's any last questions from our colleagues, and we haven't heard from Japan or Korea. Any comments? Okay. Any more questions? Well, thank you so much. This has been very, very interesting, and really appreciate it. We are just in the beginning of trying to develop dementia-friendly spaces here, and we do have one of our colleagues who is working on a dementia-friendly garden template and has also a handbook, but I don't know if she has your principles. So that was very, very interesting to read about the principles and how it's important to operationalize those throughout your projects. I really appreciated that. And learning about communities of practice also. I might have to email you, Joanna, for more information on what that exactly entails. So this has been wonderful. I do appreciate all of the presenters and the information that was shared. And Sandra, thank you for organizing this. What a wonderful, wonderful webinar for us. And there are also some comments more comments saying that it was wonderful. So thank yous and wonderfuls from everyone. So this has been terrific. So we'll hope to see you next month for age-friendly universities. This webinar will be posted up to our YouTube site, and if I forget to send it to you, let me know, and I'll do that. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Paul.
Take
Thank
care.
you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you.